Oh, you're funny.
Hi, Dad. Welcome back to another episode of Dave and Andy's Honest About Life. How are you?
I'm doing well, Andy. I hope you are as well.
I am. I am. Thank you very much. Another beautiful day
Yep.
here in Virginia. It's been warm up there in Minnesota, hasn't it?
Been hot. It's been hot. Now it's cooling off a little bit. We're down to like 82 or something. We've been right around the lower 90s for days. It's been nuts.
Question for you, weather related. There's all this smoke coming out of Canada. That's
Unbelievable amounts.
it's
Worst
really
I've ever seen.
yeah. It's making for some interesting evenings because the sun is so obscured that it looks like a moon. It's not very bright.
Yeah.
When it rains, is this smoke above the rain clouds? Is it above? So does the rain knock it out of the air?
That's a good question. It's actually just more of a wind shift that brings it out of the air. But rain, it can be combined with the rain because we have seen a lot of sooty rainfall, especially if it's really light rain. It leaves sooty spots all over the place. It leaves, the smoke particles that come out of the cloud and join with the condensation nuclei that make a raindrop. Yeah, you get residue, some residue. It really depends on how high that smoke is, and a lot of it is about 20,000 feet up, I believe. So that's below a cloud. Well, it's within the cloud. The cloud is at about that height from 20,000. Thunderstorms can get up to 35, 40, 50,000 feet. That's way above the smoke layer. But for the most part, it does combine, I think, with the smoke, and it actually introduces condensation nuclei, which is necessary for raindrops to form. And that's why they used to seed clouds with nuclei so that rain would form. And they might still be doing a little bit of that, but yeah, that's what it's actually introduced particles, and you'd think you'd have more rain, but unfortunately, it also blots out the sun, so you get less solar radiation, and that then can sometimes limit the amount of thunderstorms that pop up.
So it's just a mess all the way around. So
It
Canada's,
is.
these huge. So they're trying to get obviously rain to support the effort to put out these big fires, but at the same time, with wind and with the lack of rain, for all the reasons you just mentioned, these sorts of things could stick around for a while.
They can. And this is it's the worst I've seen in all my years of doing weather. This is the worst I've seen over the largest area of smoke covering the United States from those Canadian wildfires. And you feel for those people because they're using all their resources to try to get this stuff out. And it's just one pops up, they put out one, they get two more that pop up, it's tough.
It is tough. It is tough. There's lots to talk about there with respect to, what's killing the trees and giving them, fuel for the fire, what's creating
Yep.
all this fuel. So we could talk about that another time. The question I have for you today is, I'm really just looking for your opinion on how this happens. So, or whether or not it happens at all. So I remember as a young kid, you would be working out in the driveway on your Ford Pinto, and this must have been back in the late 70s, early 80s. So to give you a feel for the age of Pinto that we're talking about, but
Yep.
you being unafraid to pull the engine out of a car, get it fixed, and put it back in. And the question I have for you is that the sort of thing that gets your kids interested in doing the same sort of thing and being unafraid to work on an engine, for instance? Or is it something else? Is there something else at work that kids end up having an interest in? How does that happen, do you think?
Well, I think it starts at home. It starts with the family, and it starts with the dad or the mom. The mom can be working on an engine just like a dad can. But and I think kids pick up on that, and they see the joy of accomplishment. If when I was working on the Pinto, it wouldn't always get fixed. But it is something that you probably watched, and I did with my dad. My dad liked to fix everything and anything that wasn't working, he tried to fix. I mean, he didn't believe in something being broken. Just he thought there was always a way to get it fixed, and he did fix things a lot. And so I think that helped me. And then the other thing in my life, which was important, was sports. And my dad loved to watch sports and listen to sports. He listened to the Twins way back when, and he wouldn't be able to leave the radio if their game wasn't over. We'd have to sit and wait until the game was over before we could go somewhere. And that's, yeah. So I do believe it starts there at home. I think it's also things that we learn at school. You know, you may get into shop class that fixes engines. There's so many wonderful lines of coursework now that kids can go through that help them with these things. Maybe if their dad isn't around or their mom isn't around as much, or they're very busy, they don't do things at home for the kids to see, you know, then they've got these classes that they take. And I think that's a big part of it as well.
I remember your dad bringing a little radio to, you know, when the family would get together, or even at church, maybe.
Yes, yes.
Would he have his little radio if the Twins were playing or the Vikings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yep, totally. And if they scored or something, even in the middle of church, you go, yeah, hopes. Oh, that's funny.
He really, yeah, he was all in on that. And, you know, so it's not often that you hear that a child isn't doing something very similar to what their parents were doing. I mean, every once in a while you hear that, you know, mom or dad was a star athlete in a given sport, and their children are doing something entirely different, going on to be doctors and not interested at all in sports.
Yeah,
I mean, that
that's
happens.
true too.
Yeah, that happens. So, you know, if we have that great an influence on our children, I mean, that really does put, you know, the onus, right? The emphasis back on, you know, how are we spending our time, and knowing that they're watching is really is a big deal. And I know that you've raised a handful of children, and they all have different personalities. Do you see that they have taken on some of your personality, each of them?
Yeah, I think each and every one has something in there that reminds me of myself. And I think that's just typical. And I was very fortunate to be able to spend time with the kids. My job was very demanding in the beginning, and when you were younger, I spent a lot of time at work. And you know, I look back at it and I wish I'd spent a little more time at home with family, because I believe that is the, you know, the foundation for all of good things that come out of everything is family. And there's nothing bad that comes out of family. Yeah, so there's a lot to be learned, I think, in watching how kids develop based on their environment, based on their home environment, based on their work environment or their school environment. And let's build on that to make it better if we can.
Right. You know, there's a lot of approaches to, you know, the way people feel about providing for their family, whether it's the mom or the dad. You know, they decide to, you know, sort of dive in and consume themselves with work, and because they're making a good paycheck, and they feel like that's how they want to provide for their family, is they want to support their family financially, even though it might mean sacrificing time with your family. I mean, so that's a fair approach. You feel bad if you find out after the fact that, you know, years down the road, if they felt like it was all for naught, because they would rather, you know what I mean? They would have rather spent time with their family instead of long hours at work. Or
Yeah, and that happens. That happens a lot, I think, with people that have been forced into making money to support the family. They've been forced into long hours and multiple jobs, and that takes away from family, and that's tough. But you got to do it. You know, if you gotta survive. You got to put food on the table, and you got to have shelter. It's just a shame that we can't get all this to work together somehow, and everybody still have time at home, time with the family, and also have a good living. And you know, to a certain extent, that's happening now, where people are doing a lot of work from home. You know, so that's a whole new perspective that kids are dealing with nowadays. That they get to see their mom and dad, you know, at work, at home. They may get yelled at to stay away or get out of the room. But I think that might be something better in the long run.
It seems to be a bigger part of the conversation these days is that work-life balance. I mean, maybe it's always been a part of the conversation. When you were younger and newly working, and maybe there was discussion about it, but it feels like you hear it a lot these days.
Yeah.
Especially with young families.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're hearing it more. That's good.
Yeah. Well, Dad, as always, wonderful to spend this time with you. Thank you for sharing with me your perspective, and it's valuable, and I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy. I love you so much. It really is nice to do this, and I hope we can continue until I am pushing up daisies or something. So.
I hope so too, Dad. All right, so we've got a lot to look forward to, and we have some ideas about what we're going to do next. So until then, Dad, have a great rest of your day, and know that I love you.
You as well. Love you too, Andy. Bye.